coming to you live from Tennessee, from the east to the west. We are talking Cowboys everything. And you just entered
the Cowboy Zone.
Welcome back to another episode of the Cowboy Zone. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Blood City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. And we are back after the bye week, and we are ready for some Dallas Cowboys football. Thank you guys for joining tonight. As you can see, I'm rolling solo. My guy, Lambo, is dealing with some personal matters, so I'm going to hold down the fort for him. But we got a lot of Cowboys news and notes, and we're going to dive into all of the key matchups that we have this Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings. So before we get into it, guys, make sure you like, make sure you share, and also make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channels. Definitely looking forward to seeing you guys' questions and comments because you guys fuel the fans. You guys fuel the show. So thank you guys for joining us. I see we got Amanda in, DC4L. Thank you for tuning in. Definitely appreciate your support. We still got to get you on our Saturday show, Keeping Up with the Joneses. So I'll reach out to Rika and Charlie and see if we can make that happen sometime pretty soon. So thank you for joining tonight. And also thank you for sharing it to your page, DC4L. If you guys haven't done so already, they have an amazing Facebook group. So make sure you go over and join the DC4L Facebook group. I see we got my guy Geechee in the building. Geechee, thank you for joining also. I know you're going to give a lot of great insight as well on what we can expect from this game against Minnesota. Got my guy Jack Meeker as always tuning in. Thank you for your support. Appreciate you coming in. And we got William Coulter. See, you changed your name, or maybe your YouTube name is different. So thank you for tuning in and watching us tonight. And as always, we got Mendoza in the building. The hardest working Cowboys fan I know. So Mendoza, thank you for tuning in as always as well. So we got a lot of news and notes to talk about. As you guys know, I'm not really a hot take guy. So I'm just going to go through all the facts as we have them. Talk about some of the things that have taken place this week. We actually have a lot of news to talk about in terms of injuries and players leaving and players returning. And Brian, thank you for joining as well. Definitely appreciate you tuning in. Again, before we get into it, guys, make sure you like, make sure you share, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe. We got my information and my co-host Lambo's information going across the bottom of the screen. So let's go ahead and kick this thing off, and let's talk about some of the storylines that we have entering Week 8.
Storylines.
So the theme of this week in terms of storylines is players returning. Got a lot of guys who are back on the practice field. Some of them will probably be back this week. And Mendoza, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Definitely all love. You've been with us since day one. We definitely appreciate your support. So we got a lot of guys coming back. Some of them are eligible to come back this week. Some may take another week or so. So we start off with the ones I think will be coming back. And they are sorry guys, dealing with a sinus drain. So I try not to do that as much. So the first guys we got coming back are Kelvin Joseph, Boss Man Fat, and Sean McKeon. Both guys went on IR, and they were designated to return to practice on October 8th. So if you guys aren't familiar with the IR rules, once a player's 3 weeks are up, and the team could have gone longer, but once the 3 weeks are up, the team has a 21-day window where they can either sign the guy to the active roster or they can shut him down for the rest of the year. Now, there's been some There's been a little bit of misreporting out there. Some people are saying it's October 11th, but October 11th was the actual day they were able to come to practice. They were actually designated to return on October 8th. So 21 days from October 8th is October 29th, which is this Friday. So the team has until this Friday to either activate those guys to the 53-man roster, or they have to shut them down for the rest of the year on IR. So more than likely, we may not see them play, but you can expect to see Boss Man Fat and probably Sean McKeon on the active roster this week. Now, in order to activate guys, you got to shut some guys down. So there was some news that was reported this week. We had two guys that went on IR, kind of surprising. One of them was Maurice Kennedy, and the other one was Brent Urban. Two backup guys, kind of just basically role players. Both of them were a little bit surprising to me based on the injuries. I thought, and thank you, Bikichi, backing me up on that. Yeah. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, Dallas is taking advantage of the rules that are in place. So they put Urban and Kennedy on IR the same week that we have two guys who are designated to come back from IR. So they're definitely playing some games with the new IR rules that we have this year. Because in years past, you could only bring back two guys. This year, it's unlimited. And instead of 6 weeks, it's 3 weeks. Yeah, we do make up these fake injuries every year, Geechee. But in years past, we would do that and shut a guy down for the year, kind of like what we did with Rico Gathers and guys like that. Just let them know, you know what? Come back next year. There's probably a spot waiting for you. Come back and compete. This year, the windows are a little bit shorter. So now the team is going to do this constantly throughout the year. So we're going to constantly see guys who get put on IR for 3 weeks as other guys come back. And William Coulter asked the question, and Geechee, yeah, saying Robinson was the casualty last year. Exactly. Happens quite a bit. I'm surprised Sean McKeon wasn't a year-long shutdown, because in the offseason, we're going to talk quite a bit about this, what we do at the tight end position. And having a guy like Sean McKeon on the roster is going to help make that decision easier, because he's a talented backup for whoever we keep between Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz. And Geechee, you're probably right. I actually made a tweet about this earlier, and I said, more than likely, we're going to see McKeon and Joseph come back this week. And then when Gallup is able to come back, which will probably be next week, maybe, then we'll see a guy like Sprinkle get cut and go back to the practice squad. So, yeah, and like William Coulter said, yeah, that's why they went to the IR. We needed the room. William also asked the question about who else is coming back. So, as you guys know, Michael Gallup also went on the IR, and this is his 3rd week, and the team put him as a designated to reserve guy. So starting Monday, as well as Francis Bernard, so let's not leave him out also, because he's a key special teamer, ended the year as our top special teams guy. So both of those guys have started their 21-day windows to return to the team. So anytime between now and 3 weeks from now, those guys can come back. So it really just depends. They could activate Gallup this week. They could slow play it a little bit. I think it really just depends on how much they feel like they need them to win some games. I wouldn't be shocked to see Gallup actually be activated this week. It wouldn't be surprising. I wouldn't expect a lot from him, but it wouldn't be a shocker to see him activated, because he is a key part of our offense that we have been missing. And Geechee, just talking about what's coming down the pipeline. We got D-Law. We also got Gallimore. Those guys are probably, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks away from being eligible to return. But yeah, those are definitely moves we have to make. So far, we haven't really had to cut guys because we've kind of played the IR game. But eventually, we're going to have to start cutting guys. And Jeff also brings up the point about Dorrance Armstrong coming back as well. That's another guy that we have to soon make room for. So that'll probably be another show in itself, talking about who do we keep and who do we cut on what has turned into such a deep roster on offense and on defense. And Shane Odom asked the question, kind of been the hot topic on social media the past couple weeks. He says, with Steele keeping his position and Lyle moving to another one, our offensive line could be back as the best O-line in football. Now, I actually heard the interview today. Mike McCarthy didn't say Steele was starting this week in the game. He said he's starting off the week as in practice at tackle. That's not saying Steele won't start this week. I talk about this all the time. Offensive line is just as much about continuity as it is about talent. You can put the 5 best linemen you can think of on one line together, and if they can't play well together, your offensive line is not going to be as good as you think it will be. And even though Lyle Collins is definitely a more talented guy than Terrence Steele, if the offensive line is gelling with the 5 guys we have, you don't really want to mess with that, because it's almost like going from playing left-handed to right-handed when you change a guy out on the offensive line. It pretty much changes how the next guy beside him has to play, because he's already gotten his timing and his ability to carry guys on stunts and communicate with the guy that's to his left and to his right. So if you start playing games and moving guys around, you can find yourself getting in trouble. And that's one of the reasons where I hear the stuff about Lyle Collins, the guard, and Terrence Steele, the tackle. It sounds good, but you don't want to mess around with the offensive line like that. And Geechee says, I like the Collins move, and I also like that they're going to let him practice first before throwing him in at guard. Great point, Geechee. Talking about this on social media, and I know you guys all kind of follow each other, and I've been kind of getting into the conversation a little bit. I try not to get sucked into stuff like this, but we got to look at the facts with Lyle Collins. Lyle Collins has played one game since 2019. Since December of 2019, he's played one game of football, and this is November of 2021. So in 2 years, he's only played one game of football. I don't care how good a shape people say he came in the offseason. He's only played one game of football in 2 years. And now we're asking him to not only come back to the field, but play a position he hasn't played in 4 years. That's going to take a little bit of time. It could eventually happen, but I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, we have to get Collins in at guard today, or even we have to get Collins in at tackle today. Because like I said, continuity on the offensive line is everything. So we have to let Collins get a chance to get back to his best and get acclimated to the offensive line before we start shifting stuff around. On top of that, people talk about this guard move as getting the best 5 on the field. Collins had a hip surgery. If you guys are familiar with that, if there's any injury that can zap a player's athleticism, regardless of position, if there's any injury that can zap a player's athleticism, it's a hip injury. And again, we've only seen him in one game. So we don't know how that hip injury has affected his lateral movements, his ability to bend, his ability to transfer power from his feet. They could be seeing in practice, you know what? He's not the same tackle that he was before. So maybe we're moving him to guard just out of necessity and not just to put the best 5 on the field. So there's a lot of different scenarios and reasons you can put up there about why things like this are happening. And I see we got a bunch of comments. So yeah, I'm gonna get to those. I'm gonna go through them. You guys are leaving some great comments so far, as always. So keep it up. William asked the question: do we have to make room for a trade? Well, if we trade a player for a player, we don't have to make room because that player will take the other player's spot. But if we trade for a player with a draft pick, then yes, we will have to make some cuts to make room for a player. And Brian says Collins playing left tackle / right tackle, left guard / right tackle in practice. Jerry said yesterday LC will be starting at right tackle. I mean, he's a right tackle, but again, he hasn't played football in 2 years. So I feel like people are really jumping the gun on all the talk about Lyle Collins might not be starting this week. Got to give the big guy some time to get back in the groove. And Geechee, a great analogy is just like a dance team. Everybody has to be in sync. If one guy's out of sync, it immediately stands out. And with the offensive line, that one guy to sync will get your quarterback healed. And that'll lead into one of our other major storylines with Dak and that calf injury. This is one thing we don't need is making some switch ups on the offensive line and leaving Dak more vulnerable. And Amanda saying Connor is the weak link, put Lyle in. And I say this, we don't know what Lyle is at guard. People are pulling up tape. I keep seeing the same tape float around from the Seattle game. That was one play 4 years ago before the hip injury. We can't extrapolate that Lyle Collins will be the same guy he was then, when even though then he wasn't that good of a guard. Brian says if Collins is to play right tackle, that will allow Zach Martin to be able to help Tyler, and that'll help Williams. That's not necessarily the case, Brian, because like I said, Collins hasn't played football in 2 years. Collins may actually come in and look worse than Steele just because of rust, and we don't know what his athleticism looks like after that hip injury. So I think the team is doing right by slow playing this because they haven't seen him outside of preseason. Because remember, he only played one game with us and he's been out the last 5. So the team has to see what he looks like right now. Did he stay in shape while he was suspended? I don't think they changed the rules, so players aren't allowed in the facility while they're suspended. And for a guy that's 315 to be able to sit at home for a month, unsupervised, basically, we don't know what kind of shape he came back in. It doesn't take long to get out of shape, guys. And imagine at elite level like that, it definitely doesn't take long. So that's a lot of the different factors that I think are kind of playing into why they're slow playing this. And Mendoza kind of summing up exactly what I've been saying. He hasn't played in so long, and fans want to switch him to a new position for a best 5 situation. 100% agree, Mendoza. There are a lot of reasons to make this change. I'm just not buying the whole best 5 scenario. And Swan, yeah, he did have the hip surgery. We can go through the list. Bo Jackson, guys like that. Hip surgeries end careers. They don't just take athleticism, they end careers. And we've only seen him for one game, so we really don't know what he looks like. Geechee says, I don't understand. People think he'll jump back at guard and be an all-pro. I don't either. And Jack Meeker saying, yeah, agree with Amanda, but unless they have practice with the line and see Connor struggle, Lyle can step up. Mendoza bringing a great comment, and this basically just turned into the Lyle Collins hour. We're at 20 minutes already, and it's been nonstop Lyle Collins. But if this is what you guys want to talk about, we'll keep going through it, and I'll hit the other storylines pretty quickly. And Mendoza, I had to put this comment up. and I'll hit yours too, Brian, because this is what I would consider the best 5 scenario. We don't talk about Connor McGovern, who we saw play very well at guard last year in place of Zach Martin. That should be the best 5 discussion, and not moving Lyle Collins and putting him in a new position he hasn't played in 4 years after not playing football in 2 years and having a surgery that can literally end your career. Geechee talking about this. This is another great point. And Geechee, to be honest, in my heart, I still feel Connor Williams is a tackle. I think whatever team signs him in the offseason is going to sign him to play tackle. And we're going to regret that we didn't play him at tackle. But you're probably right. If the name of the game is compensatory picks, which Dallas loves, it's kind of hard to build a market up when you sat a guy for 10 games. So for that reason, if the team wants to get the highest compensatory pick possible, and we know how valuable those are to the front office, it kind of would be contradictory for them to sit a guy who could bring them some value in the draft. And Geechee talking about what I was going to get into with the key matchups about Minnesota bringing pressure with 4 linemen. We'll definitely talk about that more in a few minutes. And William Coulter kind of backing up what Mendoza was talking about earlier. Yeah, definitely. Talking about that. And Swan said he's been in the building for 2 weeks now. That's true. But again, 2 years out, 1 game in 2 years, we just don't know. We just don't know. Maybe good points, Swan. Maybe he came back last week and that hip didn't look like they thought it would. And they said, you know what? Maybe he's not suited to play tackle anymore. Maybe we have to put him at guard. Stuff like that does happen at all types of positions. Another great point. I mean, we know Jerry's a master in the media. Could be something to keep them off guard. Just talking about that. Geechee saying McGovern at center is better. You guys know how I feel about the center position. Anything we can do to upgrade that position is a plus for me. Shane Odom. Hey, don't take McGovern out as the fullback now. I like McGovern at the fullback. If you want to get the best 6 linemen on the field, keep McGovern at fullback. Yeah, Geechee saying he's a tackle. That's what he played in college. He played guard in college also, Geechee. I do remember that. So he did play some guard, but he played much better as a left tackle. Jeff putting let's trade Connor Williams and let Connor McGovern start. We'll probably be talking about that next week because you never know. There could be some trades lurking. And William Coulter pretty much summed it up. All this says to us is we have a lot of depth at the offensive line position. I mean, we can throw out all types of scenarios that we want to throw out, but at the end of the day, we literally have 7 offensive linemen who could make the 5 combination of starters, and I don't think anybody would complain. There's not a lot of teams that can say that. Most teams can't even put 5 competent offensive linemen on the field, and we actually have 7 that could come out and compete and build a more than favorable roster. I see we got Philip Mullins in the building. We'll be getting Lambo back pretty soon. He's kind of taking some personal time right now, getting himself together, gearing up for the second half of the season. And we got a lot of rivalry weeks coming up. So we'll also be seeing a lot more Cowboy Dale. So make sure you continue to stay with us for more of that. And Mendoza throwing out the same pipe dream I've been throwing out for 3 years to get us a true free safety. Jesse Bakes has always been top of my list. All right, so we're at 25 minutes, and it looks like I've gone through all the Lyle Collins talk. So let's move on to some of our other storylines. And this is the big one, which I'm surprised has not been the major topic of discussion this week, and that's Dak's calf muscle. As you guys remember, um, before before the bye week, Dak injured his calf muscle on the last play of the game. We've been hearing a lot of mixed reports in the media about how severe it is and can he play this week and should we sit him and where is he gonna be at? And Geechee asked the question, which is the one I'm gonna lead into. Dak was a limited participant in practice today. If he's a limited participant in practice tomorrow, he's starting for me on Sunday. I mean, it's the NFL. I understand that we have Dak's importance to the team, and there's a chance he could re-injure it. But I don't think you can play your quarterback that way. Um, he could get injured at any point. I mean, he's dealing with the ankle injury. He's going to be dealing with lower leg strains and pulls for probably the rest of his career. Every time he has a slight lower leg injury, we can't put him in bubble wrap and say it and say that we're just not going to play him. And this is a good point. They said if we had a game last week, he probably wouldn't have played. In my opinion, if he's practicing, he can play. That may be an old school mentality, but if a guy can go through a practice, he can go through a game, in my opinion. It just means our offensive line has to do a better job of protecting them. And something I guess most fans don't know because they don't think about it. Quarterbacks throw a hell of a lot more in practice than they do in an actual game. So if our concerns are somebody may hit Dak and injure him, okay, we can have that discussion. But that's a part of playing football for anybody. But if the discussion is, well, I want him to rest his calf muscle and I don't want him moving and throwing, well, he's doing that in practice. Limited practice means he's out there on the field with the offense running plays. And in an average game, Dak may throw 40 passes, 50 passes. He's throwing that or more in practice between warm-ups and team drills and position drills and ones-on-ones. So if he's able to go through a full practice of moving around and throwing the ball, he can go through an NFL game. The question is, can our line protect him? That's the discussion. But if you think he's going to get hurt just by being out there being active, I'm not concerned about that at all. If he gives me 2 limited practices, which means he's out there with the team throwing the ball, going through plays, I have no concerns about Dak this week. And William, that's about all I'm going to say about it. So yeah. And Geechee, yeah, if he says he can play, let him play. Yep, and William, that's true. They throw a whole lot more in the preseason than they do in the regular season. But yeah, that's exactly how he hurt himself. And like I said, when you hurt your ankle, that's like the base of your body for a quarterback because the quarterback's entire motion is transferring power from their feet all the way up to their arm and releasing. So that's going to always throw something off. It may be a calf this week. It may be a shoulder. It could be a quad. It could be anything. But if he's able to play, you got to let him play. All right. I think, we got a couple more storylines to talk about. We got Tristan Hill. I don't know if I talked about this one. Tristan Hill is off the PUP list now. And for you guys that aren't familiar with the PUP list, basically, Tristan Hill didn't participate in the preseason whatsoever. So the team was able to shut him down for the first 8 weeks of the season. So now Tristan Hill is back. The team has a 21-day window for him as well. They have to decide whether they're going to put him on the active roster, they're going to shut him down and put him back on IR, or they're going to outright release him. So this is another position we got to kind of pay attention to. Like I said before, Tristan Hill hasn't played football since last September. So he's what, 14 weeks, 14 months removed from playing football. And Geechee already going to my point. He's going to need some time to get in football shape. He's a defensive lineman. So they're probably going to play this all the way out to week 11. Now, they could say, you know what, Neville Gallimore is going to be back week 11. We may throw him in and give him a 2-week audition to see if he's even worth keeping a roster spot for when Gallimore comes back. So there could be some games to be played right there with Tristan Hill. On top of that, we just lost Brent Urban. And if you go check out Brent Urban's snap counts, he was right at like 23% playing, which is roughly, 15 snaps a game. Even though Hill may not be in shape, they may activate him and just give him 5 or 6 snaps a game just because we need a body on the defensive line. So that's something else to be aware of. If he's healthy, they may just say, look, big boy, you got to go out there and give us 5 snaps. And next week it may be 10 snaps. And then the week after that, it may be 15 snaps. And give us some tape to evaluate whether or not you're actually healthy before Gallimore comes back. So it could go either way. They could keep him out, slow play him, and decide at week 11, or they could give him this 3-week audition. William Coulter says, release him. I don't like him. Guys, I got to say this. Great questions, great comments so far. It's always kind of nerve-wracking when you're going solo because you don't know if you're going to have enough to talk about. But we're at 33 minutes, and you guys have been giving me some great comments, great questions, keeping the dialogue going. So thank you for that. We haven't even gotten to our key matchups yet. So if you haven't done so already, I see we got quite a few people viewing. If you haven't done so already, make sure you get in the comments so that I can recognize you and and thank you for supporting the Cowboys Zone. And also just let us know your thoughts on the team, any questions you may have. This is a very interactive show. We're very fan-centric. So you guys fuel the show, and we definitely want to hear you guys' opinions and thoughts and questions. And William, you guys have done that before, because every time I do a show, I say, okay, Lambo, we're going to go 45 minutes, an hour tops. And before I know it, just like tonight, we're 35 minutes in, and I haven't even hit the meat of what I want to talk about. So thank you guys for that. Brian says Hill was looking good before he got hurt. He definitely was. And Geechee's right about it's hard to crack the rotation. That's why I kind of have the feeling they may have to throw him in now because, like we just said, there's a 3-week window for Brent Urban. Gallimore is probably 2 or 3 weeks away. So if we get to week 11 and we decide to bring Tristan Hill back, he's going to be coming back at the same time as Brent Urban and Neville Gallimore. Now, that lineup would be impossible for him to crack. Right now, he may just have to suck it up and put some tape out there to maybe find a position for next year or to retain a roster spot for this year. So it's a very interesting thing they have to do. Geechee, great point. And thank you for this, man. You know I'm a big supporter of you as well. I really respect your knowledge, and to hear you say that, it definitely means a lot. And I got my guy Jeff. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I always appreciate your support from day one also. Geechee bringing up the point, and I talked about this during the draft. If you guys followed us during the draft, as soon as the draft was over, I said, you know what? This looks like one of these things is not like the other. When you look at the guys they brought in, all of them were tall, long arms, big 300-pound guys. And you guys can go back and look in April. I said the two guys who are probably going to be on their way out are Tristan Hill and Antoine Woods. Now, I didn't expect Woods to leave that soon, but I was not surprised by it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tristan Hill may be on his way out also. And Geechee, this may be another reason they bring him back early, because you know what? Maybe they throw him in on Sunday, give him 20 snaps, and then put him on the free agent market, on the trade market, and say, you know what? We got a guy, former second-round pick. You guys saw him play 20 snaps. He's still healthy. Who wants to give us a fifth for him? So that could happen too. You just don't know. It could go either way. We could see him get cut. We could see him 3 weeks from now, or we could see him on Sunday night. Very interesting topic to keep in the back of your minds when they put the roster out on Friday. Shane Odom asked the question about the trade deadline. Do we see the Cowboys making any moves? I don't know if I'm in the minority on this one. I don't see any moves to be made in terms of bringing guys in. I just talked about Tristan Hill. I could possibly see that one. Maybe somebody had an injury on their defensive line and they may want a guy, and they may have liked him in the draft in 2018. I could possibly see that one. Other than that, there's not a big name guy. Maybe like a Dorrance Armstrong or somebody like that. Maybe somebody may want him because Chauncey Golston's looking pretty good, and Bradley Anah in spurts has given us something. So you could see a guy like Dorrance Armstrong being traded for a seventh or something like that. Outside of those guys, I don't see a big trade being made. And I think that kind of goes into some of the other questions that are starting to come up, like Johnny Gorham, sorry. Looks like a new name. So thank you for joining us. Definitely appreciate your support. Keep bringing the questions in the comments, because this is a good question. And we definitely love talking about stuff like this on the Cowboys Zone. This could probably spark another 10-minute conversation. Do I think they're going to trade Gallup? The short answer is no. The long answer is a couple reasons. Number one, we're in win now mode. Gallup is a very talented piece. Gallup could be the reason that you win a game or two. Like, Gallup's not a guy who's gonna be your number one receiver, but if you put a number 3 corner on Gallup, Gallup has 12 catches, 140-yard, 2-touchdown potential in any game. And you don't let guys like that just walk out the door. His contract is still cheap. Doesn't cost us much to keep him here. And this one is and Geechee talks about that, the deep threat. We don't have any deep threats on this team. I talked about this quite a bit. All of our receivers are 4 or 5 guys, except for Coop. People talk about how explosive CeeDee Lamb is. Lamb's a 4 or 5 guy. Noah Brown's a 4 or 5 guy. People like Cedric Wilson, he's a 4 or 5 guy. We don't have a lot of speed. Gallup is 4 or 5-ish guy, but he has that ability to stretch the field that some of the other guys don't really have and make those 50-50 balls. Lamb has shown that he can do that as well, but Lamb is just so important in so many other spots. You can just set Gallup at that one role, and he can be excellent in it. The other reason, and I know Geechee, I don't know if he'll agree or disagree with me on this one, this isn't a very strong draft in my opinion. Like, if I look at the 2020 draft, and I know Geechee support me on this one, every position, 5, 6, 7 guys, you can have a serious debate. This guy's a first-round talent, second-round talent. When I look at this year's draft, and I'm not as versed in the draft this year as I have been in years past. So Geechee, if I'm wrong on this or you see something different, please let me know. I don't see a lot of depth at a lot of positions. Like pass rusher, there are 2 or 3 guys I like. Defensive tackle, one guy I loved him since last year. Then it's a couple of guys you can throw their names in. Wide receiver, outside of Ohio State and Alabama, I mean, not a lot of guys you can write home about. Quarterback is definitely dried up. Running back will be much better in 2022 than 2021. Offensive line will probably be solid, but other than that, there's not a lot of depth in this draft. So if you guys are talking about giving up a 3rd round in this draft and giving up Michael Gallup, you're not going to get nearly the value in return like you would have gotten a draft in the years past, because in last year's draft, a 3rd round pick gets you Osa or Chauncey or the linebacker from LSU, Cox. That's what last year's draft gave you in the 3rd and 4th round. You're not getting that in this year's draft. For that reason alone, I'm not letting Gallup go. I'd rather have the talent this year than pick up some guy who probably should have been a 5th round pick, but he's going in the 3rd because there's not a lot to choose from. And I know people are gonna say I'm hating on this one. I love Cedric Wilson. He's a Memphis guy. I probably watched at least half his games in high school. But the facts of the matter is he's made some great plays. But for this season, he's averaging 2 catches for 30 yards. He's made some impact plays, but those aren't stats to say I don't need Gallup, because Gallup in a bad game is probably getting those stats. And like Geechee said, yo, this is the year you dump guys. The draft isn't that strong, but if you got guys at the bottom of the depth chart, and we're going to have a lot of free agents in 2022, this is the year to probably take advantage of that depth and stockpile some 5th and 6th rounders and see if you can move up in what I consider a weak draft. And so instead of picking late in the 3rd, you can maybe pick mid 3rd and get better quality of player. Brian asked, any news on KZ? If you're talking about the DWI, I talked about this before in a couple social media groups. J-Ron Curse had a similar situation in 2019 with Minnesota. It actually happened in October. DWI, he pled guilty. He did not get suspended that calendar year, but he was suspended the first 3 games of the subsequent year. So if I use that as a guide, I would probably say KZ doesn't miss any games this year. They'll probably find a way to table the trial for 2 months, which is pretty easy to do. He has a good excuse. He's a football player on the road. So he might not even go to trial until February. And then he pleads guilty, gets his community service or what have you. And then the league can't make a move until the court has resolved the issue. Same thing with Deshaun Watson. They can't put him on the commissioner's list or suspend him until his court cases are settled. So I think it's going to be the same situation there. I don't think KZ misses any time. Johnny asking about Wolfman or Wolf Hunter, LVE. That would be an interesting one to consider, especially if you think about how much it seems like they like Cox, and you got Francis Bernard, who's not a bad linebacker coming back, and you also have Luke Gifford, who can give you some quality snaps here and there. As long as you're committed to Micah Parsons playing 90% of the linebacker snaps, I wouldn't be opposed to LVE traded. On top of that, I wish my guy Tony was here because Tony always says this. LV, and I've said this too, LVE is the best half-season linebacker you can find. We're 7 weeks in, he hasn't missed a game. I hate to jinx him, but history has shown us LVE misses 8 games a year. So we can sit and wait for that shoe to drop, or we could try to cash out now. The question is, for the Cowboy fans, and I don't know the answer to this question, I haven't really thought about it. What do you guys think LVE will garner in the free agent market next year? And let me know in the comments. We're at 46 minutes. I promise you I'm going to get to my story, my key matchups in a minute. But this is a good question, Johnny. Guys, let me know because I honestly have not considered this. What do you guys think LVE will get in a contract when he becomes a free agent next year? You guys think he's a $10 million linebacker? You think he's a 1-year, $4 million less look and see linebacker? You think somebody makes him the cornerstone of their defense? What do you guys think about Leighton Vander Esch? And based off of you guys' response, that'll let me know whether or not I think they should trade him now. DJ Dog coming in. We spent 25 minutes on this DJ Dog. I'm sorry. The long and short of it, we don't know. Collins hasn't played in 2 years. He's only played 1 game in 2 years. He hasn't played guard in 4 years. You don't just throw a guy out there and expect him to give you Pro Bowl level talent and performance. So I think they're slow playing him. And we also talked about the consistency of the offensive line. You don't want to mess up a good thing. We're getting a lot of yards rushing on the right. Surprisingly, we're getting a lot of yards rushing inside. We talk about Connor Williams inside. We talk about Tyler Biotish. As bad as they've looked in spurts, our offense is still number 1 in the league. We're probably top 2 in rushing. So we're doing a lot of good with what we have. So it's really not a big need to rock the boat. And Paul joining us from across the pond. I'm looking at the time, Paul. I'm assuming it's 2:20 a.m. over there. No, it's later than that. It's probably like 4:20, I believe. So thank you for joining us. Definitely appreciate your support. I'll be definitely watching you guys tomorrow when you do your UK Cowboys podcast, I believe at 12 noon. So if you guys get a chance, check that out tomorrow as well. They have a lot of great guests. They do a great job breaking down players and games also. A lot of great Cowboys podcasters out there for you guys to check out. I see we got Charlie joining us. Appreciate you joining as well. Make sure you check us all out this Saturday on Keeping Up with the Joneses. Paul asked a question about Zeke's case. Well, the thing about Zeke's case, the courts technically had resolved what they did. The police ended their investigation. So once the police end their investigation, that's when the league can start to conduct their own investigation. Zeke's situation was just a completely screwy situation where everything pointed at he was innocent, and the league just made their own assumptions without any facts. But that's a story for another day. Johnny asked the question, do I think we need another pass rusher? Right now, I would say no. I think once Gallimore comes back, he's going to give you some one technique play, and that's going to give you some more interior pass rush that we're not getting from Calvin Watkins. Calvin Watkins is a great run defender, not much in the passing game. So you're going to get Gallimore and Osa side by side inside. That's going to give you a lot. And I talk about this before. The problem with D-Law in the past, he's never had anybody to really take the pressure off of him in terms of them putting 2 or 3 guys on him. If you got Gregory, Gallimore, and Osa on third down, when we get Lawrence back, it's gonna be hard to put 3 guys on him because Gallimore can blow up a gap, and Osa shown us he can do that as well. And Randy Gregory is almost becoming unblockable one-on-one in third down situations. So I don't think we have to get another pass rusher. I think we just need to stand pat, wait for our team to come back, and then let them get in sync. Charlie talked about this on his podcast yesterday. This year, we haven't played with 100% of our team yet. Like, people forget that. Zach Martin didn't play week 1. He comes back. Lyle Collins is gone. So we haven't played 100% of our offensive line. Michael Gallup left after week 1. We haven't played with 100% of our receiving core. Then you look on defense, Watkins has been out. Gallimore's been out. D-Law's been out. We're talking 3-4 games here on our defensive line. Regardless of what you guys feel about Armstrong, he's been out. So we got a lot of Anai's been out. We got a lot of guys who are decent to highly talented pass rushers who haven't played a lot this year. So I think we need to wait 2 or 3 more weeks, get everybody back. There's no reason to waste a 4th or 5th round pick on whoever they're talking about. We need to pick up Marcus Golden or Melvin Ingram, guys like that. I mean, when D-Law comes back, where will Melvin Ingram play at if we traded for him? That's the question I have. Now, if you tell me D-Law might get shut down for the year, then okay, we can have that discussion. But if you plan on D-Law coming back this year and Gallimore, let's just stick with what we got. Give it 3 more weeks. We're 5-1. We should continue to keep it rolling with our pressures and our sacks, and then we just let it fly week 12. Paul saying LV to Chicago or Atlanta. Those are 2 good options if they're willing to make the trades. Mendoza saying LV could net a 3rd or a 4th. I don't know if I agree with you on that one, Mendoza. That's a good question, though. I don't know about a 3rd. Maybe a 4th that could become a 3rd based on playing time. I think 4th is kind of his ceiling unless he proves otherwise. Only because we're halfway through the season and he's due a big contract, possibly, and he has a lot of injury concerns. I don't see a team giving up a lot for a trial run with him. But you never know. Different teams value players different ways. He could be the missing piece for somebody's linebacker core, and they say, you know what, I got to get me some Wolf Hunter, and they give up whatever it takes to get him there. Yeah, so Brian kind of capping this off, and I can finally get to my key matchups. Saying 5-1, not a completely healthy team. That's scary to think what will happen. We're 100%. We may not ever be 100%, but at some point, we're going to get back 5 starters minimum between Gallimore, Lawrence, Wilson, if you consider him a starter, Lyle, and Gallup. So we're going to get back 4 to 5 starters at some point, and key starters, not guys we just brought in who are overperforming like Carlos Watkins or Keanu Neal, like guys who we thought would be the cornerstone of this team type guys. So yeah, definitely a lot to look forward to in the upcoming weeks. I see the views are staying pretty steady. So thank you guys for continuing to stick with me, rolling solo tonight. Keep the questions and comments coming in. If you haven't done so already, once again, make sure you like, make sure you share it to your favorite Facebook group, share it to your personal page. Let the people know what we're talking about tonight. You guys are making some great comments, asking some great questions, and the fan base needs to know it. If you guys follow some of these Facebook groups like I do, you will see some of the ridiculous stuff that you see out there. And sometimes it's good to let them see guys like you putting good questions in the comments and you guys responding to their comments as well as me giving my opinion. And Geechee says, CD says that calf looks great. Looks like he hasn't missed a beat. That's always encouraging. And Mendoza saying, yo, gonna fortify this defense once we get guys back. All right, guys, we're at 56 minutes. I haven't even talked about the game yet. So let's get into it with some key matchups that we need to think about going into this Cowboys versus Vikings game.
Key matchups.
All right, guys. So I know you saw my little countdown screen to start the show off with. So you know my first key matchup that I have to talk about. And Geechee, all the points that you made going throughout the show, I'm going to hit all those too. But the first one I got to talk about is Diggs versus Jefferson. That's going to be where it all boils down to. We won this game last year. Jefferson had a good game, but Diggs didn't play. This year we got Diggs coming back with all the confidence in the world, playing up to his potential. And I think Jefferson has a lot to prove. This is one of those games where the guy on the other team looks at our guys one of the top, and he's going to bring his A game. We haven't had that in Dallas in quite a while. We've had guys who kind of hate the brand and feel like they want to shut the fan base up. But this one is more personal. This one is, if you want to place your stamp as one of the top receivers in the league, you got to beat the man to be the man. And right now, Diggs is the hottest thing in the NFL at the cornerback position. So this one is definitely going to be a great matchup. I think we're probably going to see Diggs doing a little bit of shadowing. And like Geechee said, it's a great matchup between those two guys. Two tall, lanky guys. Both of them have great ball skills. Jefferson is a physical receiver, and Diggs is a physical corner. So it's going to be a great battle to look at on that side of the ball. I'm really looking forward to that one. And Mendoza, I get to yours as well, because then I got to go to the opposite end of the spectrum. And Brian, I see yours also. And we got Thielen versus Brown. Now, most people, and I'm glad you said this, Geechee, because most people are going to say Thielen versus Jordan Lewis. But if you go back and watch some Minnesota Vikings games, people assume Thielen is playing in the slot. No, Thielen's playing on the outside quite a bit. And Mendoza helped me with this because you're my guy when it comes to players' names. This number 3 receiver that they have that's been making some big plays for them, he's been playing more slot than Z position. And most teams that play against the Vikings, when Thielen was playing in the slot early in the season, KJ Osborne, thank you, Mendoza. I always know you can come through for me with a name. So yeah, in early in the season, when Thielen was playing in the slot, they were playing a ton of bracket coverage on him with the corner, the linebacker, the safety, whatever. So they started to push Thielen more outside to kind of eliminate the ability to bracket him with 3 guys. And they've been able to isolate him more one-on-one with the corner. And just like Geechee said, his route running skills are ridiculous. He has this move that he does. It's unreal the way he starts and stops as a receiver. So we're going to see a lot of Thielen versus Brown, probably one-on-one on the outside more than we like. So we definitely got to pay attention to that one. And Jay Lou is going to get KJ Osborne, like Mendoza said. If they start to bracket Thielen a little bit more, this is going to be a one-on-one matchup. This Osborne kid, it's pretty quick. Great speed. So Jay Lou may have some issues staying with him. And Geechee, yeah, thank you for that. Like I said before, people assume Thielen's a slot guy. He's been playing outside a lot if you go back and watch the past 3 or 4 games. Don't watch the first 2, but watch the past 3 or 4. All right, so then so we'll stick with Minnesota's offense and then we'll come back to our offense versus their defense. Yeah, Geechee, we've had Mendoza on the show quite a few times. He really knows his stuff. That's one thing I love about this show. One of the things that keeps me going. Like, I don't want to sit here and preach like I'm the football god. I love having people in the comments who can spark conversations, who can make great comments. And not only Mendoza, everybody who watches the show, they do this every week. I see we got Richard Woodard joining us. Thank you for joining as always. Appreciate it. So yeah, you know what? If Lambeau's out for a couple more weeks, Geechee, I'm gonna have to get you and Mendoza and probably Jeff, and we'll have to do another viewers roundtable like we've done in the past, so we could talk about some topics. Probably would have been a good thing to do in the bye week, but we'll figure it out sometime this year, in the next 2 weeks, I would say. Maybe a good Thanksgiving show or Thanksgiving week show. All right, so now we got to talk about the Vikings offensive line versus our defensive line. The biggest matchup to pay attention to on that one, and Geechee, I'll definitely link up with you on that. I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, but for some reason it just hasn't lined up. But we definitely got to do that soon. Now back to offensive line for the Vikings. They had what I considered the second best tackle in the draft in Christian Darrisaw. He hasn't played. He didn't play the first 4 weeks due to injury, and the tackle they had playing there was awful. Darrisaw came in last time they played, week 6, and for the first time this year, the Vikings didn't give up a sack. That's the impact a great left tackle can have on an offense when you can just put him on an island and the other 4 guys just kind of do what they do. So Randy Gregory, who has been balling out this year, he's going to have his work cut out for him, because this Christian Darrisaw kid is my definition of what they call a dancing bear at tackle. Big kid, long arms, great feet, amazing feet. Hand usage is better than you would expect for a rookie lineman. So it's definitely going to be a great matchup to pay attention to. But yeah, Randy's in his bag now. You're right, but I'm not discounting Darrisaw, because this kid, in the 1 week I saw him play, he looked really good. Now the competition may not have been up to par, but evaluating him as a player, he looked really good. And that's definitely true, Geechee. Like I said, Darrisaw is a dancing bear. His feet are ridiculous for a guy his size. This is not going to be some type of guy Randy's going to be able to dance around and set the edge on. He's going to have to use some more inside moves, use a little bit more power to get under his pads, stuff like that. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup to pay attention to. I think this is a game where Osa kind of gets things back on track. Their center is not a very good player. I believe his name is Ezra Cleveland, second round pick from last year. Where is he from? I believe he's from Boise State, if I'm not mistaken. But Ezra Cleveland's playing guard. Their center, I believe, is Mason Cole, who was a third round pick from Michigan in 2019. So they got 2 young guys playing inside. Going back and watching their games, those 2 guys didn't impress me much. I saw some mental lapses that you would expect to see from rookies. So it's going to be interesting I think this is a good chance for Osa to have a good game in the inside. Now, then you got the right tackle. Right tackle solid. I don't expect a lot from Golston in this game. He'll probably give you some quality snaps, but the matchups I'm really watching are Osa versus Ezra and Darrisaw versus Lawrence. And Geechee asked the question, would I blitz Kirk a lot this week? That's a good question. It would really depend on how well I feel like Anthony Brown can hold up for 4 seconds. Oh, Gary Bradbury is the starting center. I thought it was Mason Cole. My mistake. Thank you, Mendoza. But yeah, I still think Ezra Cleveland versus Osa is still the matchup I'm watching on the offensive line. So the thing about the Vikings offense, they run it a lot, and they run a lot of play action. So when a team runs a lot of play action, sometimes it can kind of burn you from blitzing, because if that running back can get through the first line of defense, he's got a lot of green grass. Thank you, Geechee. Cole is the backup. And they actually, you talked about we won't see Dak run a lot of bootlegs. Cousins actually does a lot of bootlegging for that team. So that's another thing that kind of scares me. If I blitz, I think this is the week where some nickel blitzes would probably be effective. So if we blitz, I would probably do more nickel and hope we can catch him where he's bootlegging to the same side the corner's coming from and get a big play. I don't know how much I would blitz inside, because on top of that, not only does Minnesota run a lot, Minnesota runs a lot off tackle. So if you're blitzing from the middle and the play is going off tackle, if your linebacker isn't gap savvy, that running back will run right past them and just hit it and go. So I think my blitzes, if I did blitz, they would come more from the outside with the strong safety or the nickel corner. I wouldn't blitz that much inside, but that's just my opinion. And Mendoza talking about the right guard. Yeah, Ezra Cleveland is the right guard. I know that one for a fact because I liked him a lot coming out of college. He was an athletic guard, but the kind of like what we would say with Connor Williams. You saw the athleticism in college, but it hasn't really translated in terms of strength as a guard. He probably would be a better right tackle than guard, but they have to play him there. And Geechee brings up the point, and I talk about this a lot as well. Parsons hasn't done a lot of coverage in open space. So this is one of those situations where Cook is a veteran running back. He could probably take advantage of Parsons on some wheel routes, which is kind of like we saw the Patriots do last week. On top of them doing some play actions, and where they play action, and instead of Cook stopping and blocking, he just continues on into a route. And a guy like Parsons may try to go in and get sucked in and Cook run right past them into an open route. Mendoza brings up the point talking about if we see Parsons blitz from the edge. I think, like I said before, this is a game where you're probably going to have to do your blitzing from the outside, because from the inside, the way they run their offense, you might get burned if you don't hit it right. Yeah, and Geechee, good point. You got to get in his head early. On top of that, Kirk is not a good primetime quarterback. Like, he struggles when it comes to primetime games. So the lights might get too bright for him, and you may want to blitz him to speed up his mental process and hope you can get some mistakes out of him. My only concern is if you don't catch it, and you got 1-on-1 with Brown versus Thielen, that could be an ugly play. Udo's playing guard for them. Okay. I don't know why I thought Ezra Cleveland played right guard for them. He's playing left guard. Well, the way the Cowboys play, they can still switch it up and move guys around on the line because Osa plays everywhere. And DJ Dog, yeah, great point. Wilson's hit on Cook in last year's game changed the tone. Definitely right. Let me see any other offensive matchups you guys want to talk about. I mean, we won this game last year with far lesser talent on defense. They did score 28 points on us, I believe. They did a lot of running the ball, and we did as well, kind of running the clock out. I can see this game kind of turning. Another key matchup I want to talk about. I think Kelvin Joseph is going to play this week. So that's just wherever he plays at is always going to be something to pay attention to. Jack Conklin is their tackle. I mean, the tight end, Chris Herndon. Two tall, athletic tight ends. They don't really use the tight end much in their offense, though. So it's a good thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind, especially in the red zone. But Thielen's their red zone guy. So I don't know if tackles are going to really play a big effect in this game. I think in order for them to win this game, it all comes down to how well we guard against Dalvin Cook on those off tackle runs, which Geechee talks about. He talks about Cook in the running game. Got to talk about. He talks about in the passing game. You got to talk about in the running game too on the edges, because the Patriots kind of exposed us a little bit running off tackle, and that's Minnesota's bread and butter. So we gotta shut down Cook. We gotta make sure we get help for Brown, and then the wild card is that Jefferson Diggs matchup, which will probably be a lot of man coverage on the outside. Charlie says the Vikings are the 28th most efficient rushing team, and they're the 10th most efficient passing team. Now, a lot of that could come down to the fact that Alexander Madison started like 3 games for him, and Adam Thielen is a monster. And Geechee talks about J.J. Watt. I didn't know he was out for the season, so thank you for reporting that, Geechee. I know he hates it too, because I believe they're playing Houston this week, or they played them last week, I believe. But they got a big game coming up this week against Green Bay, which will be a very big game in terms of who gets the number 1 seed. And he's been doing a lot to help clear up that guy on the other side and get into the quarterback. DJ Dog asked the question, did Anthony Brown play in last year's Vikings game? If I'm not mistaken, he did play in last year's game. And I don't really remember. I think that was the game where the Cowboys started to run more cover 2 because we were so decimated in the secondary. And I think he had a pretty good game when they started doing cover 2. They're not going to bail him out this year. This year, he's going to have to kind of man up because we play a lot more man. And Richard Woodard says he's more concerned with Cook running the ball, definitely. And Geechee, yeah, when he gets his feet set, he could be a difference maker at quarterback, especially when you put him out on those bootlegs and you only give him 2 reads or 3 reads. He can definitely do some stuff. He's good. He's a good enough quarterback to make some impactful throws. Yep. Mendoza talks about the backs can catch the ball, and you got to contain. And Cook does break a lot of tackles. So definitely going to be a lot to pay attention to. Yeah, and Charlie did confirm that Brown did play last year. I think that was one of those games where Robinson started, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so that's pretty much all I have in terms of the Vikings offense. So now let's go to the Cowboys offense versus the Vikings defense. I see the views are holding pretty steady, so thank you guys for your great comments. Thank you guys for continuing to watch. I see the likes don't match the views. So if you guys haven't done so already, make sure you like this. Like Charlie likes to say for his show, if you don't like it, hit the dislike button. Your engagement helps, whether positive or negative. So keep the comments coming. We're at an hour 15 minutes. We'll get through this in about 25 more minutes if you guys can hold with me. But once again, keep the questions and comments coming. I see there was a lot of talk earlier about our offensive line versus their defensive line. And like we said before, and everybody's kind of said this, they bring pressure with their front four. And they have a underrated front four in terms of talent. We all know kind of a lot of the names going left to right. You got um you got Everson Griffin in a semi revenge game. Former Dallas Cowboy for a cup of coffee last year, went back to his team. He has 4 sacks on the year so far. He got 2 of them against Detroit, but he does have 4 sacks on the year. Then you look inside, they got a guy we're all very familiar with in Dalvin Tomlinson. And Geechee, I promise it's like you're looking at my notes because I was going left to right. Another name we're all very familiar with, Dalvin Tomlinson, played for the New York Giants. He's historically owned Connor Williams. And then you go across the board again, and you got Michael Refrigerator Pierce, as I like to call him. He's 6'1", about 345, and surprisingly agile for his size. Former Baltimore Raven, one of those guys that kind of got lost in the depth of Baltimore and has kind of made his own niche with Minnesota. I believe he has 2 sacks also this year. And then on the other side, you got Danielle Hunter, former LSU Tiger. I think he was a second-round pick in that 2015 draft. A guy I really liked, even over Randy Gregory, to be honest. But he's gone to Minnesota. He's kind of carved himself out a nice career, and he has 6 sacks on the year so far. So this is a week. Steele is going to get tested because if you look at how Minnesota likes to play, Minnesota loves to have their 2 big nose tackles kind of take up 3 guys. Similar to what the old Minnesota teams used to do with the Williams brothers, they used to call them. Pat Williams, and I can't think of the other Williams' name, maybe Kevin Williams. But they use their 2 big nose tackle, the 2 big defensive tackles. Well, they are nose tackles because they're both 330. They use those 2 guys to take up the 3 guys on the inside. And then they isolate both of the tackles on the edges and just let their defensive ends have a pure one-on-one matchup. So they're definitely going to have their hands full, in particular Steele and Everson Griffin, who's going to probably come back and have a little bit of more juice this game. But so there's going to be a good matchup in terms of the passing game. I think Geechee brought this up before. They have a tendency to drop 7, and we'll get to that about their DBs, but they do a lot of front 4 pressuring, and it's been pretty successful so far this year. And then Jeff talks about in the running game, we all know how Everson Griffin is about contain. Several teams have taken advantage of it so far this year, and particularly Detroit in the last game. So we may have to run a little bit more off tackle towards him, knowing that he won't be where he should be in containing. So then we go to the linebacker position, and Geechee, Again, hitting my notes. Eric Kendrick, he may be the best linebacker in football right now. That kid flies around the ball. And you can really give testament to the fact that their two big defensive tackles keep him clean. That plays a lot into how he plays. Kendricks is a extremely athletic linebacker, and he uses athleticism well in open space. So they're going to help take away a lot of those inside routes. Dak is going to be a little careful throwing it across the middle to our tight ends where he hasn't in weeks past. DJ Dog, great point. If they have that much beef at defensive tackle, then run no huddle. They have some good backups too, because they have Sheldon Richardson on the bench, who may actually be the starter this week because I think Michael Pierce is still injured. So they have a good 3-man rotation of 3 big talented defensive tackles. But that's definitely what teams do. Their run defense isn't that efficient because teams have been known to kind of wear their big guys down on the inside. And Mendoza saying Tyron should get Wanham, Steele should get Everson. Imagine they'll target Steele. When you say Wanham, do you mean Hunter? Is that misspeaking? Geechee, just like I talked about, they create the most pressure with just 4 linemen. Yeah, and they do have Armand Watts and Sheldon Richardson as the backup DTs. Sheldon Richardson could probably start on a third of the teams in the league, and Watts is he's a pretty capable number 4 guy. Yeah, and great point right here. Kendricks does run the slot, super athletic linebacker, and then they also have the other linebacker. What's his name? Athletic kid from I believe he's from UCLA. Anthony Barr. Yeah. Anthony Barr might be injured, I don't know, but he's another guy who's an athletic linebacker who's pretty good in coverage as well. Very lanky guy, hard to throw over. Geechee saying this is the best D-line we'll see since Tampa. That's definitely true. And thanks for pointing out, Mendoza. I thought Griffin took over their starting spot, but I could be mistaken. Okay. All right. Well, I looked it up, but yeah, we're definitely going to see a lot of Griffin, and we're going to see a whole lot of Hunter. So yeah, they play their linebackers a lot in coverage, and then we get to the secondary because this is where it gets real interesting at. Because first of all, their corners are not good at all, and I think Geechee kind of made that comment before about why they rely so much on their front 4. Their DBs are not that good. Now, for people who don't follow them, they say, didn't they sign Patrick Peterson? Well, they did, but Peterson's on IR right now. So their number 1 corner is Brashad Breeland, another name that we all know very well. We've seen him in Kansas City. He's actually gotten worse since he left Kansas City. A sucker for a double move, if you all can remember. So Coop should have a field day with him, as well as Gallup. And then you look on the other side. They have a guy named Cameron Danzler, 3rd-round pick from Mississippi State. I don't think he's starting in place of Peterson. I think they move out Mackenzie Alexander, former 2nd-round pick out of Clemson, so I know him very well. Alexander reminds me of, I would probably say, a not as aggressive Jordan Lewis. He's a 5'10" guy. He tries to be scrappy, but he just doesn't have that dog in him. So if they put him outside against a guy like Lamb, it's gonna be ugly. And his ball skills aren't that good either. Now, when teams go to 3 wide sets, That's when they bring Danzler in. And Danzler goes outside and Alexander goes inside. Danzler is tall. He has pretty good feet, but he's not a physical corner for his size. So I could see both of our receivers kind of being physical with him on the outside. So it doesn't make for some good matchups for them, our wide receivers versus their corners. And if we get Michael Gallup back this week and we're able to slide Lamb or Coop inside more, and you put Gallup outside against Breland or Danzler, even if Gallup's not 100%, this could become a very ugly game fast. Then we go to the secondary, and we're at 1 hour 26 minutes. I'm gonna try to do some over unders. I see the views are still holding steady. So, guys, if you haven't commented so far, be sure to stick with me for like 5 more minutes, and I want to do a couple of over unders, and then we'll get out of here. And Jeff says Peterson wasn't good anyway. He was solid. I'll say that. He definitely wasn't Peterson, but he was a solid corner. And you say he wasn't that good. He was hands down their best corner, which tells you how bad the other corners are. Yep, DJ Dog, great point. He had great tape specifically against LSU. That kind of got him drafted. His testing numbers were terrible, and his draft stock dropped like a rock. Mendoza, know this name because I talked about him all during the draft season. Keith Taylor. When I think of Keith Taylor, I look at Danzler. Good feet, decent awareness. He just didn't test well, and he has a problem getting physical with receivers. So that's what we can expect. And like Geechee said, we keep them clean. This one should get ugly, especially if Gallup plays, because that's going to be pick your poison when it comes to our receivers versus their corners. It's going to be like Tampa Bay all over again, where they may get so desperate they just start playing out 10 yards not to get destroyed and hope their front four can just get there in time, just like in the Tampa game. All right, so last position we got to talk about is the safety position. And this one's going to be really fun for 2 reasons. Geechee talks about Xavier Woods, former Cowboy. So we are all familiar with him and how he plays as a free safety. Definitely going to be some matchups to take advantage of in terms of him trying to cover deep and him trying to cover tight ends, because one thing I see about Minnesota, they switch between cover 1, cover 2, cover 3 every play. They never run the same defense twice. And that's kind of a testament to their head coach, who's a DB whisperer, and how he likes to call his defense. So Xavier Woods is going to be isolated sometimes with a nickel corner, a nickel receiver or a tight end. We got to take advantage of those. And there are going to be some plays where they're running cover 1 and he's going to be the deep man. So you definitely got to watch that. Now, and once again, Geechee beat me to the punch. Harrison Smith, I hate to say this, I love watching this guy play. This guy is hands down, he's at worst top 3 safety in the league. And from watching what Minnesota does, what I love about how he plays, Harrison Smith is such a student of the game. He's kind of Ed Reedish, where you may see him giving you a cover 2 look, and right before the ball snaps, he's hitting the hole and he's blitzing, or he's man up against the tight end. Then the next play, he may be at the line of scrimmage giving you a man look, and next thing you know, he makes a call and they're shifting into some type of cover 2, cover 3 zone, and he's just right in your passing lane. So Dak has Dak has really been great the past 6 weeks in his chess matches with safeties. This is going to be his biggest chess match because Harrison Smith is not going to give him a clear read. That one kind of concerns me in terms of turnovers, but Harrison Smith disguises coverage better than any safety in the league, I would say, right now. Mendoza asked the question. Smith is the guy back there. Wonder if they test Woods. I hope so. Definitely hope so. Mendoza going to the backup positions. I've heard of Cameron buying them. I don't know who Josh Metellus is. They don't take their safeties off the field a lot. That was one of the reasons nobody really heard of J-Ron Curse, because their safeties never left the field. And Geechee talks about, he can play in the box, he can cover, deep thirds, whatever you need. And he's a strong safety. That's what makes it even more impressive. He's a big dude, 6'3", 225. And he plays out there like a linebacker slash nickelback slash free safety. He gives you everything you need. So he's definitely the one guy we have to pay attention to at all times. Very good student of the game. Okay, so he's a special teamer. So definitely something to check out with that guy. All right, guys, we're at an hour 32 minutes. That's pretty much all I have in terms of key matchups. So quick recap on offense. Watch the running backs. Watch Thielen with his one-on-ones, opportunities versus Brown, and watch that battle between Jefferson and Diggs. On our offensive side, got to pay attention to those one-on-one matchups with our tackles versus their ends. Their defensive tackles are going to take advantage of Biotish like a lot of teams have. I wouldn't be shocked to see them do what teams have done before, where they kind of put the guy head up on Biotish to make sure he has to play him one-on-one. Pay attention to the linebackers because they're very good in coverage, and watch Harrison Smith. If you guys want to know how this defense runs, pay attention to Harrison Smith on every snap and watch how he just moves back and forth across the line of scrimmage. It's a great thing to watch. They try to do it with Xavier Woods, but it's night and day when he tries to disguise it. It's completely night and day. So a lot of great matchups. And Jeff points this one out. Got a revenge game for Curse, former Minnesota Viking. I talked about that a few minutes ago. Nobody really knew who he was because he didn't play a lot, because they had Andrew Sendejo and Anthony Harris and Harrison Smith all kind of playing in front of him, and those guys never left the field. And then they let him go. So this is definitely a revenge game for him. A bit of a revenge game for Everson Griffin, so you got to pay attention to that as well. Hunter, Smith, and Kendrick should be our focal points on offense. Yeah, definitely. All three of those guys. Mendoza brings up the point they got to go hard for George Edwards here too. Well, he was here last year, and we won for him. I think this is more a revenge game for Minnesota than us in terms of trying to prove the guys wrong, because we could go back to the Mike Zimmer, because Mike Zimmer was in Dallas. So that's another element we can throw into in terms of the revenge game. These games are going to run deep. We had a battle with them in 2019 where we lost it on the last drive. 2020, a down year, we came back and got a bit of our revenge against them, and had a backup quarterback playing on a much lesser team. This year, we're a little bit more healthy, but they look a lot better than they did last year. Always a competitive matchup. And I believe it was Richard Woodard early in the comments that said these teams do match up well on both sides, kind of a mirror image of each other. in terms of how they play. We do a little bit more blitzing right now, but pretty good matchups. And yeah, another element you got to throw in: Sunday night game. Minnesota's trying to prove we're not in the outhouse yet. You got the hot Dallas Cowboys coming into your hometown, prime time. They're gonna bring a little bit of extra juice for this game, so you got to pay attention to that also. All right, I should be here Sunday, so we'll hold game predictions for Sunday. And Mendoza, they do have Patrick Jones also, but he's not playing that much, which is surprising to me because I really liked him as a defensive end. What school did he come from? I want to say he came from Pittsburgh. I believe he was a second or third round pick this year out of Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken. Very talented guy. I thought he had a chance of sliding into the first round this year, but he didn't, and they haven't been using him much. But another guy they may have to kind of pull out in this game also. All right, before I get out of here, I see the views are starting to fall again. So let's get into this one real quick. And like I said before, I should be back on Sunday, so we'll save game predictions for then. But for now, let me do a couple of over-unders to get you guys' thoughts on the game, and then we'll close it out for the night. So, guys, stick with me for over-under.
Over-under.
All right, guys. So for you guys that aren't familiar with over-under, this is where I throw a couple of stats out, and you guys let me know whether or not you think we'll be over or under that stat. I just like to do this to kind of gauge how you guys feel about some of the key matchups I talked about, to see if you think we're going to win those matchups or lose them. So we'll start with the Vikings offense first. Last time we played, Justin Jefferson had a pretty good game. I think he had 120 yards. So this week, over under Justin Jefferson, 85 yards. Let me know what you think in the comments. Over under Justin Jefferson, 85 yards this week. Now, me personally, I'm leaning towards over. And that's just not to say we're going to completely annihilate the team. I think they're going to have some good matchups. So I'm going to give him the over on this one. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a back and forth battle than most people expect. And it looks like a lot of people in the comments are agreeing with me. I see we got Charlie saying over. And Geechee, Jeff, and Mendoza all saying over. So you guys think he's going to have a pretty good game as well. So let me go to this one. Last year, Thielen had a really good game. Thielen had 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. So over under Thielen, 100 yards. Over under Thielen, 100 yards. Let's see where you guys are with this one. And Mendoza asking a good question. I'm curious of who they rather double, JJ or Thielen. If it was me, I would probably double Thielen, because I feel like that Diggs and Jefferson matchup, it's a coin flip matchup. I know Diggs has been playing great lately, but I don't want to discount how talented Justin Jefferson is. So Charlie says under for Adam Thielen this week. Geach is saying over. Jeff saying double Thielen. Let Diggs shadow Jefferson. So it looks pretty split on this one. Jeff, let me know what you think. Over under 100 yards for Thielen. And then we'll do one more over under for the offense of the Vikings. Jeff says under, but 2 touchdowns. Jeff, I'm actually agreeing with you on that. I think he gets multiple touchdowns this week because that's just how that offense runs. It runs through Thielen once they get inside the 25. And Brown's definitely gonna need some help. And Mendoza says under also. All right, guys. So, like I mentioned early in the show, the Vikings have changed their offensive line. They added Christian Darrisaw. For the first time this year, they didn't give up a sack. And you look at our team, we've got our guys with a week of rest. Randy Gregory coming off that monster game against the Patriots. Osa didn't play as well. So, he's going to be hungry to kind of try to get back in the groove of things. So, over under 1.5 sacks for our defense. 1.5 sacks over under our defense. Now, for me personally, I think this is going to be a good Osa game. So I'm expecting him to have at least 1 sack. I think another guy's going to find a way to get a sack also. And Geechee bringing up a great point. Kirk has been getting the ball out quick, coming off those play actions and bootlegs. But I just feel like Osa has such a great matchup inside. I think he's going to find a way to get home at least once. And like I mentioned before, I feel like we're going to bring that outside nickel safety blitz, and we're going to get home one time from an outside perspective. Charlie saying at least 3. And somebody said something about Randy Gregory. Geechee said Randy had 2 against the pass in less than 2.5 seconds. Great point. I think Darrisaw is a little better than the tackle that the Patriots trotted out there, but you never know. And we got Dwayne Wright coming in saying D is getting at least 2 interceptions tomorrow. I won't do an over-under on interceptions because I don't want to jinx it. If it happens, I love it. I'm just quietly rooting for the streak to continue. I won't put that one out there. But I like what you're thinking, Dwayne. I like your thought process. Real quick before I go to our offense, I don't know how I could overlook this one. Dalvin Cook, the last time they played, had 45 yards receiving and 115 rushing and 2 touchdowns. So what's that? 160 yards total. Over under Dalvin Cook, 120 yards total offense. Jeff says Kurtz gets 1, Osa gets 1, Armstrong gets 1. That's a possibility, definitely. I don't like that right tackle matchup. I got a feeling we may see Gregory switch sides a little bit and get on that right side, take advantage of that. So we'll see. All right, over under 125 yards total for Dalvin Cook. Okay. See a couple of guys saying under. We got Jeff saying over. So it's definitely something we got to pay attention to. As much as I like Thielen, I think Cook is the one that kind of makes this offense go. So we definitely got to keep him under wraps. All right, let me throw a couple of Cowboys offensive over-unders out there, and then we'll get out of here. I don't know which receiver because we got so many matchups across the front. Let me look at last year's stats. Last year, our best receiver had 81 yards. So, over under any receiver, and you can name the receiver, over under any receiver 80 yards this week. Last time we played, no receiver had more than 80 yards. Charlie says they won't score more than 23. Over under 80 yards for one of our receivers. And if it's over, name the receiver. And Geechee says Coop goes off this week. I definitely agree with that one. Their corners are not good against shifty big receivers, and Coop is the best at that. So I think this is going to be one of those Coop games. I almost feel like they may just activate Gallup as a good decoy. I mean, if all you do is tell Gallup to just go out there and run straight ahead, I feel like he could do that now if he's practicing. He doesn't necessarily have to take hits or be required to make catches. Just go out there, let them see that number, run a couple 15-yard fade routes, post, just to make the defense play a little bit more honest. So because of that, I may not be shocked to see Gallup out there, and that'll really open up things for Coop and Lamb. And Charlie says over for both Coop and Lamb, which if Gallup plays, I agree with you, Charlie, because they definitely don't have an answer for Lamb in the slot, if that's the case. I mean, those are also saying both Coop and Lamb. Jeff saying Coop and Lamb also. And Dwayne Wright, great point. We didn't have Dak last year. So you're right. We should be a little bit more improved on the offense in terms of our production. Geechee putting them 150, $150 for Coop this week. And then you also add to the fact Coop gets a week of downtime to get healthy. And Jeff says that'd be good conditioning for Gallup after being off. I agree. I wouldn't be shocked to see Gallup be activated just to be a decoy and run some sprints. I mean, if I was a team, if I was on the offense, that's exactly what I would do, because what do you have to lose if he knows the ball's not coming his way unless it's just like wide open? Go out there and give me three 9 routes, and let's see what happens. Yeah, Charlie, there's a bunch of smart people in here. This is what fuels me to come on every Wednesday night. I know I'm gonna get some good Cowboys conversation, whether I agree or disagree. I highly respect what everybody says. All right, Dwayne Rice also throwing out Schultz too. You know what? Let me go ahead and ask this question. Well, now I got 2 more over-unders. So we talk about their defensive front four and how great they've played. Griffin has 4 sacks. Hunter has 6 sacks. And I think the defensive tackle has 2. Over under our offense giving up a sack and a half. Oh, because they agreed with you. So, yeah, over under our offense giving up a sack and a half. And let me throw this caveat in. Over under, assuming Steele is at tackle and assuming Collins is at tackle. Does that change your position? Geechee has under. Does your position change if Lyle Collins is the starting tackle this week? Mendoza says over. Charlie says over. Jeff says under. Okay. So Geechee says regardless of who's at right tackle, we're still not giving up a sack and a half. Jeff, you are my other guy that said under. Let me know. And Dwayne, if it's still at right tackle, does your answer change? Is it different than if it's Collins at right tackle? All right. And while you guys put that in the comments, Jeff and Dwayne, we'll do one more over under. The last time we played the Vikings, like I said before, we had a backup quarterback in, and we were missing both of our tackles. If I'm not mistaken, this may have been the first game we played Martin at right tackle. I don't know if I'm right about that or not, but it was pretty close to that point in time. Despite that, Zeke had 100 yards and Pollard had 60 yards. So we had 160 yards rushing, not total offense, just rushing from our running back tandem. This week, over under 150 total for our running backs, just rushing. Over under 150 total. No, I take that back. I think 150 is too easy because you guys are already talking about our receivers should go off. Over under 125 rushing for both of our running backs combined. Mendoza says he thinks the sacks will come from the interior. And Jeff says Collins for rush, steal, mental lapse. All right, guys. Last over under of the night, and then we'll get out of here. Over under 125 yards rushing combined with both of our running backs. All right, we got Geechee with the over. Geechee, you just put it on him this week, huh? Mendoza says under. So Geechee, you got Coop going off, you got the running backs going off. So you're gonna be kicking your feet back and enjoying a good game by halftime, huh? Jeff says Jeff has it as a push. All right. That's pretty much all I got for tonight, guys. Once again, thank you guys so much for your great questions, your great comments. Hopefully we get my co-host Lambo back here in the next couple of weeks. If not, I'll still be here every Wednesday night, 8:30 Central Standard Time. Still got a lot of football to talk about. You guys have been bringing it as always. So I'm looking forward to coming back next week, seeing what we got to talk about. Hopefully, we have another Victory Wednesday to talk about all the good things we saw in this game and look ahead to the following week's game, which I believe is against Atlanta. And if you guys follow the show, you know I have a lot of interesting stuff to say about that Atlanta matchup because I don't think it's going to go as sweet as we all expect it to go. But that's a conversation for another week. And Geechee, thank you also. I may have to bring you guys on that show for Atlanta because I need you guys to talk me off the ledge. I know it looks like a cupcake on paper, but I keep looking at Atlanta play every week, and I'm looking at those matchups, and I still feel like, you know what? This will be the one where we slip on a banana peel a little bit, and they catch us off guard. Now, I appreciate that, Geechee. You same to you as well, man. I follow your stuff all the time. And Eric still sticking with his tie. Okay, Jeff, we got Denver before Atlanta. And that should be a good game because we get our first looks at Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton playing together. Geechee, me and you are probably the only people in the world who think this could be a shootout against Atlanta. I feel in my heart that one's gonna be a shootout, and I'm terrified we're gonna come out on the wrong side of that shootout. But we'll talk about that in 2 weeks. So make sure you guys join us next week, 8:30 Central Standard Time for the Cowboy Zone. If you like what we're talking about, got another show this Saturday. Keeping Up with the Joneses. It's myself and the Dallas Cowboy Uncensored community with Rika and Charlie. So you guys can tune in for that one as well this Saturday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We should have a couple of interesting guests joining us Saturday night. So if you guys have a few minutes, make sure you tune in and catch that as well because it should be some great conversation. More than likely, I'll lead into a few more over-unders. Charlie always gives us his his perspective on the game, and you get to hear some good back and forth banter between the three of us and the special guest that we'll have joining us. Always a funny show, like Jeff said. Always entertaining on a Saturday night. So if you guys have an hour to kill and you want to come and talk some more Cowboys football and not be so serious, join us at 8 o'clock for Keeping Up with the Joneses. Well, that's pretty much all I got for tonight. Once again, Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy. Be sure you guys like and subscribe on Bluff City Cowboys on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, on Bluff Cowboys on Twitter, and as always, catch us Wednesday 8:30. Catch me Saturday night with Charlie and Rika, and I should be here for my pregame show on Sunday at 11:15 Central Standard Time. So we haven't done game predictions in a while. We haven't done our keys to victory in a while. And we haven't done bold predictions in a while either. So make sure you guys get your bold predictions together so that I can keep track of that. We still have the ability to give out some prizes. So we haven't gave out any yet. So get those game predictions and those bold predictions set. And hopefully we can give out a prize this week. So, as always, this is Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week. You guys have a good night.